Hello, welcome, Jack and Joe show. Joe Sansom alongside me, and we lost on Tuesday night, but not the end of the world, but a poor performance.
Yeah, hi Jack, hi everyone. Not the end of the world, but one of the most dreadful games I've ever seen. And for that reason, I don't think we'll dwell on it for too long because it was just a bit of a chore to sit through that. And I wasn't there, Jack. So for those that were like you, I felt sorry for you.
I had a nice time. I thought the away pub was good. Wasn't as packed as I thought it was going to be. In fact, the away end was sparse. I mean, not having a go at us at all, but we brought quite a few fans, but not loads. But I can understand it. It's a Tuesday night at Birmingham. And I came up from the concourse as the teams were kicking off, got to my seat, or some seat I just chose, looked, saw the net ripple, started cheering, did go in. And that was really it.
And then that was when it peaked, right?
That was probably the best moment of the game.
Yeah.
And even when Harrison Reed put the ball across the box and the ball went in, I knew it was offside.
Yeah.
He was offside, right?
Yeah, miles off. And it was one of those, I was watching at home and, I was just thinking, when he picked up the ball, I was like, the flag's going to go up as soon as it, as soon as this break ends, like whether it goes into the net or whether it gets cleared away. Because that's just the rule. And I understand the rule, but it was a bit frustrating to obviously have that brief moment when you're like, oh my goodness, could it be? Because we really didn't deserve anything. I thought that Aston Villa were very poor, but I thought that we were about 100 times worse. So on that basis, we didn't deserve anything. It was an off night. There were some mitigating circumstances in terms of Willian and Wilson losing both of those. That's 2/3 of our forward line, both of which played sensationally in the 2 games prior to that. And Willian has pretty much the whole season, to be honest, and we can talk about his future maybe a little bit later as well. But yeah, it was a shame. Willian, we don't know what this means in terms of the rest of this season, in terms of his fitness, because it was a hamstring issue. Don't know how serious. Wilson seems to be more illness related, so hopefully that's something that he can brush off ahead of the City game, or at the very least be back for the Liverpool fixture. It's a weird situation where I was very, very frustrated throughout the game. And I sit back and look at it. And I do think, as you've said, I've seen people say, it's not that deep, but it is frustrating. And it's one of those performances which I find a little bit infuriating to watch. In the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter too much. But I think it certainly sets a precedent for next season that there are improvements that need to be made to the squad. In terms of depth in these games, when you've got 3 games in a week, we need to have more options, because those that did fill in, I don't think did a great job, and that's not necessarily completely their fault. They were thrown in when they weren't expecting to play 90 minutes of a game. They were probably expecting to play the last half an hour, 20 minutes. That being said, one to move on from. It's such a shame that our next opponents are who they are, because it's not an ideal way to get back to action at all. And we're filming this on Thursday. We both watched the game last night, City versus Arsenal, and it's fair to say that they were pretty terrifying. And I don't want to be too negative, but if you saw what Arsenal did to us, and then if you think Man City basically did the same to Arsenal, if they're on it, it could get nasty. But I'm hoping that they were just extra fired up for last night because of the magnitude of the fixture. I'm hoping they rotate. That doesn't mean too much in terms of Man City, but maybe they could let us off a little bit. And it's all about staying in the game for as long as you can and taking your chances when they happen. That being said, we didn't create anything against Villa, and for me, that's my main concern. I thought we defended fine, aside from one corner, which was a really disappointing goal to concede. But other than that, I thought we defended fine. It was the attacking element that worried me more, and I think we'll get even less chance in terms of space, in terms of counter-attacking opportunities against Man City.
Yeah, that's a concern. The lack of creativity we had on Tuesday night going into this game against the opponents we're playing, like you say, is concerning. Of course, I didn't even realise that Willian wasn't playing until Solomon got the ball, and I was like, hold on, he's not starting. Yeah. And then it was, and someone turned around and said, Willian got injured in the warm-up. So we basically made 2 changes from that team that played Leeds. In came James and Solomon for probably the Cordova-Reid and Willian. And of course, then Wilson went off injured as well. So yeah, it was tricky for us. And actually, I didn't really factor that in after the game. I sort of only realised that yesterday when I was like, oh, we were rubbish yesterday. And I was like, oh, to be fair, we did lose Wilson and Willian early doors. Ahead of Manchester City, let me just get their lineup up from last night. They were brilliant. They were absolutely phenomenal against Arsenal. They made Arsenal look silly, really. Yeah. It made it a bit of a joke of a title race in the context of that 90 minutes. Because I thought City were by far and away, that's probably one of the best performances I've seen from an individual team all season. Considering the opposition, considering the magnitude of the game, like you say. They played with a 4-3-3 with De Bruyne, Rodri and Gundogan, Silva up top with Grealish and, well, not up top, on the wide areas with Grealish and Haaland down the middle. Actually, no, that's not really how they lined up because Flash Score show it a different way, but the way in which they pressed last night, it was very much De Bruyne and Haaland playing as almost like a 1-on-1 because the way in which they were driving forward, it was always those two that were advancing the most furthest forward. We obviously lost them in the last minute in December, just before the World Cup started. And that was a game where we were in it because they basically had 10 men, but they still played phenomenally and got the result. And Joe, I'm very scared. And what's good about this game is, remember the last time we played City with fans, it was like doom and gloom. We were basically already down. We were 2-0 down within 25 minutes. It would stop the greed that day. This one's better because we're not going down. They've got so much to play for because they basically have to win the game to maintain their title push, which I think now they're going to win the title. And we're sort of playing for pride and playing for live on Sky with an opportunity to derail Manchester City and give Arsenal a helping hand in the title race. But I only see this going one way, and that's Manchester City winning the game. That takes nothing away from Fulham. I just think that City right now are a machine, and they're playing the best football they've played all season, really. And now we're coming to crunch time. They're really going to step it up. And I think Pep Guardiola will respect Fulham. I think he'll respect the performance we put in at the Etihad early this season. And I think he will obviously go full strength. I don't know how many changes he'll make, Joe. What would you predict that City might do compared to what they did last night?
It's tricky because Ake's obviously injured. Mm-hmm. And until recently, he'd been having a phenomenal season, basically playing the left-back role. I think what Pep's done recently, he's really figured it out. This sort of new system they've got when they basically, at some stages, not last night, they've gone with 4 centre-backs across the back line. There were a lot of eyebrows raised, mine and probably yours included, when they let go of Cancelo earlier in the season, as that was sort of going away from that overlapping fullback setup that they had. They're basically just giving more onus on their midfield and forward players to just stay higher up the pitch. And, they've got some threats like Grealish. He's in the best form that he's been in since he joined Man City. I think a City fan, so they are biased, made quite a good point on Twitter that we haven't heard about his price tag for a little while, which I think shows about how well he's done, because for a while there was all that debate about Grealish in terms of was he worth the money. I think right now he's showing that he was.
Yeah, I agree.
In terms of how they'll change from last night, I'm not sure if Kyle Walker has the energy to put in another 90-minute shift, so that could be something they look to change. I mean, Akanji did a wonderful job against Saka yesterday at left back. They do have Laporte who could play there. They do have Gomez who doesn't really play too much, so probably be Laporte if there's going to be anyone who's just recently come back from it. Rico Lewis as well. That is a good point. Been less involved recently, if my memory serves me right. So it'd be interesting to see. But I'm expecting, other than that, pretty much exactly the same. I don't see why he'd change Stones and Diaz. Yeah. Edison in goal. Same midfield of, Rodri, Gundogan, Bernardo Silva, and then Grealish, Haaland, and have I named everyone? I feel like there's someone I've forgotten. Grealish, Haaland,
Bernardo Silva, Gundogan.
I named them all.
De Bruyne, yeah.
Yeah. And obviously then you've just got the fact that if they do switch things up, that could be Mahrez, that could be Alvarez, who scored against us in the game at City. So I don't see much changing. Foden
was
as well. Foden came on last night and got a great assist for the 4th goal.
Yeah.
It's a weird one, and I don't really know how to approach this game. I mentioned something to you about what I would do, and I'd be interested to see in the comments, like, what would you do to stop them or at least prevent City doing a lot of damage? I'd consider a switch to a back 5 for this one game. I know that maybe shows a little bit of respect and a little bit of fear, but I am scared, and I feel like you need to reduce the space in the box. And my change would be to put Diop in the middle of a back 5, so the rest of the back 4 is the same from right to left: Tete, Tosin, Diop, Ream, Robinson. You've got the 3 in front as normal: Palhinha, Reed, and Pereira. And then if we're playing this counter-attacking system, hopefully Willian's back. If he is, he would fit into this. You've got him and Dan James, who hopefully can cause some damage. If not Willian, then perhaps Bobby Reed or Solomon. Almost take your pick out of the 2. That being said, I don't think that will happen. I don't think Marcus Silva likes to change, and I understand it. But I do think we're going to struggle to keep them down in terms of goals. And the team that played against Villa, I think they looked tired. I think they looked out of ideas. So I don't think some changes would be the worst thing in the world. That being said, I don't know who. And I think who we should talk about now, Jack, is there's been a debate for a while. Is it Tosin? Is it Diop? I think we've both been quite clearly until recently on the side of like Diop is the better option. But you have to say, Jack, that Tosin, these last 4 games that he's played, he's been phenomenal. I think he's been man of the match or at least close to man of the match in pretty much all of them.
Oh, he's against Leeds. He was brilliant, like so commanding. And there was a clip that someone, I think it might have been Ibs, who put it up on Twitter yesterday. Or someone, I can't remember, but it was really, really, really interesting because actually you can harp it all the way back to when we played like Burnley away in lockdown season, or when we played Villa away in lockdown season. Instances where Tosin would jump out and come out of position to attack the ball and then maybe get spun and get beaten. I remember especially the Burnley goal, he made that mistake where they got in behind us. However, there was an opportunity where Ollie Watkins was basically one-on-one with Tosin, and Tosin didn't step out whatsoever. He held his ground and actually won the ball really well. Just intelligent defending, just intelligent. And he's obviously come on leaps and bounds. We knew of his potential when he joined the club, when he was at Manchester City. We knew he was very good at Blackburn. They were raving about him. I have to say, Tosin Adarabioyo for me is one of my favourite Fulham players we've had at the club for years. He genuinely is just a model professional. Seems like a sound guy. He has his YouTube channel. That's not relevant to his footballing ability, but I just really like him when he's on the pitch. And I like the way he's just improved. And he was really good with Joachim Anderson. And I think his partnership with Ream, especially the last few weeks, has been phenomenal. And we're in a position now where we're not worrying about defensive performances because we're going to stay up in terms of like mistakes being made and stuff. So you can appreciate sort of just the defensive work of the likes of Ream and Tosin, and against Leeds, a team who had to come at us and attack. And whether they did that or not, I'm not sure. But in terms of Tosin's performance, it was exemplary. And even Tuesday night, didn't really put much of a foot wrong. Again, beaten by a header. Who was beaten in the air? Was that Tim Ream?
It was Ream's man, it looked
Ream,
like.
Yeah. So in terms of Tosin, he put in another flawless display. And there was talk in January about him leaving, or at least leaving in the summer. And now I want him to stay. I want him to sign a new contract. What do you think?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? That's the problem, is that he signed that extension, as did Bobby Reed, where it's an extra year. But if there's no guarantee of him signing on, then we would need to sell this summer because we risk losing him for free. And he's probably not one of our top assets in terms of price, but he's up there. It's a tricky one because I really like that Tosin and Diop have both been pushing each other. It's like one plays until the other really pushes on. And then Tosin.
But Diop never really made a mistake to come out of the team.
Well, that's the thing. It must have just been Tosin in training, I can only presume. And then he's been too good to drop. I'm sure there'll be a game when Diop does come back in, and it might not necessarily be when Tosin makes a mistake. It could even be this game against Man City. I don't think it should be, because I think Tosin was great. Well, I'd bring Diop in, but as part of a back five, but that's me just being ultra scared. I think we need to talk about another contract, Jack.
We need to talk about 2 more contracts.
Yeah. Well, firstly, the one that is not really appearing, which is Marco Silva's. I can only presume that talks are almost on hold until the end of the season, which I think is silly. But I feel like if there was talks going on right now, we'd have heard something from someone.
There are whispers from, I think, Peter O'Rourke, who said that, like, amid interest from Spurs, because obviously Spurs haven't sorted out a new manager yet, they've accelerated talks with Marco Silva for a new contract for Fulham. It just wouldn't surprise me if even a week, 2 weeks after the season finishes, the announcement is made that he's signing a new contract. Yeah. I'd be amazed if it's not in. I'd be amazed if something hasn't been said where they're just like, let's just do it at the end of the season, not now. Then again, I have no idea. You'd like to think that, given the amount of, you hear these comments that Shahid Khan makes all the time about Silva, and Tony Khan's made about Marco Silva, how he's the best coach they've ever worked with. They love having him at Fulham. The relationship between Shahid Khan and Marco Silva is very, very strong. I would be flabbergasted if they're not talking about, or at least sorting, a new contract as we speak. It has to be done. Marco Silva is the best thing that's happened to this club since Alexander Mitrovic and Slavica Kanovic, arguably, and Ryan Sessegnon. I would be amazed, but I think it will happen. What do you think?
It needs to happen. I still think it will happen. But I can understand people getting tetchy whilst, Silva puts all these comments out there about wanting to build a project here. It almost suggests that he does want to stay. So I'm thinking, well, if he wants to stay, then where is the contract? Why has it not been signed? Why, if you want someone to stay and they want to stay, give them a contract. And speaking of someone who wants to stay and we want them to stay, Willian, because that is almost word for word the exact tweet that was it Bruno Andrade tweeted last night, who's a very reliable journalist, and I remember was really key early on in our Polinia pursuit last summer. I think he was the first one that broke the news that we were actually looking more likely than Wolves to sign him, if I remember right. And that was a very exciting evening. I was getting far too giddy, and look at us now. So it was all good in the end. He's basically said that Willian wants to stay at Fulham and Fulham want him to stay, and that at the end of May, after the season's done, we're going to finalise all the details. But that's great. It also says that he's got a current deal until the end of this season. The initial plan was for a 1-year extension, but it sounds like it could be longer than that. So maybe a couple of years. I know his age. Some people may be like, oh, is that wise? I think it is. Why not? He's a quality player. People were saying he was past it this season. Why is he necessarily going to be past it in 2 years? We don't have him because of his pace. We have him because of his technical ability, and you don't suddenly lose that. And he is an unbelievable asset to our team. He makes us so much better. And that was, I think, the bigger miss out of, no disrespect to Harry Wilson, who's been fantastic. But as soon as it was Willian to Solomon, I think that took a lot out of our game, because I think that Willian, and again, there's no disrespect meant to Solomon, I think Willian has just been a cut above our other wingers this season in terms of his quality. And he can make something out of absolutely nothing regularly.
He's so good.
And I love having him at the club. And I cannot wait for that to be hopefully sorted.
So the tweet in full is translated as, Fulham want Willian renewed. Willian wants to renew with Fulham. Initially, the idea was for a new contract valid for another season until June 24, but the possibility of a greater bond grew. They will sit down to negotiate and finalise the details at the end of May. So actually, we won't hear from this until the summer, until the season's finished, which is fine. So we don't have to talk about it until then. I can't believe, I can believe, because it happens in football and the fickleness of fans and stuff, and we do it, whatever. We saw the rumours of Willian and thought, really?
Yeah.
After Arsenal and everything, and obviously he's been away in Brazil, and these things happen, and he's just been so good. Class is permanent in football. Yeah. It really is. He might not be blessed with raw pace, like you say, But even then, when he goes running down the left-hand side and makes those runs and then Robinson overlaps, it's frightening. It really is. By the way, apologies if like the internet's not very good. I had to restart it just before we started. I don't know, but hopefully it's okay. Get him for another year at least. I mean, honestly, as long as he's happy, I'm happy. Willian seems to love Silva. Silva loves Willian. He's involved, but then you can. We spoke about like Tim Ream saying, yeah, Ream could sign a new contract, but will he play every game next season? We were thinking probably not. No. But he might, and he could, and Willian could do the same, and Ream could do the same next season. Like, there's no harm to this whatsoever. And if we get a new winger in the summer and Willian plays more of a bit part role, that's fine because he'll understand that because he knows he's coming to the end of his career. But he's been a phenomenal player for us this season. Scored such a good goal against Forest. Has been amazing, really good, and. I think that might be it for today. Well, let's give a score prediction for the game on Sunday.
Yeah, if I speak, I am in ginormous trouble because I am shitting myself for this one. But the good thing is we don't have anything to lose but our pride. So why not go out there and give it a go? And when I say give it a go, I mean be solid, be sensible, and play on the break. And you can cause a City side problems. You can. The Arsenal players they brought on last night when the game was done, Reece Nelson and Ketia, Smith Rowe, they actually, they gave them a few things to think about. They're not untouchable. They're just the best team in the league. And it's just all about staying in the game for as long as you can and keep picking your moments. I think we're going to lose this one. I don't want to say a score, to be completely honest with you. But that's not to do with us. It's more to do with the quality of the opposition. Because to put it in perspective, Real Madrid versus City next week, I'm expecting City to go there and probably win, and we are not quite on Real Madrid's level just yet. We might get there soon. But yeah, it's a tricky one. What do you think, Jack? How do you see it going?
I'll be happy if this game is just not a repeat of the Arsenal game. Yeah. Just dead in the water by half time.
Yeah, I want to be in a game.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be in my seat this time, and I'm looking forward to creating an atmosphere and having a nice time because Fulham fans should be in joyous mood at the moment, even though we lost on Tuesday. I'll say we're going to lose 3-1.
I would love it if we scored. And we must remember that at this time of the season, look at Southampton, at Arsenal. I know they end up drawing. Freak results happen. And
in a title race as well, yeah.
And there are far more freaky results happening than the team in currently 10th holding the league leaders. It's not unusual at all, or beating the league leaders. We could do it. I'm sorry, they're not the league leaders yet. They would be if they were to beat us. It's one of those things where shocks can happen. I hope we cause a shock because everyone, including us, after last night, you're just looking at City and fearing them. We took them all the way. I know that they went down to 10 men. That was not our fault. That was their fault, and they could lose their heads again. So fingers crossed the pressure gets to them and we can get a great result.
Yeah, it's not like we've been terrible this season. We've been a very, very good team who have caused a lot of good teams problems. I mean, the last time we spoke about this, about previewing a game was Liverpool, the opening day, and we went there and we took the lead and, we were really good. Imagine if we took the lead against City. What would that do to them?
Yeah.
If we beat City on Sunday, we'd go 9 points above Chelsea. 9. They lost again last night, albeit to Brentford. But I don't know what's going on there. That's ridiculous. Final question for you, Joe.
Go on.
Burnley are up. Sheffield United are up. How are you feeling? We already know 2 of our opponents. In fact, we'll know all our opponents for next season because the playoff final is actually the day before the Manchester United game. And obviously, we can talk about the playoffs when the playoffs start and we can make our predictions then. But on Burnley and Sheffield United, 2 very different teams, 2 very good teams. And it's not a foregone conclusion that they're just going to be 19th, 20th next season.
No, not at all. I think the first thing that comes to my mind when you ask me that question is I'm relieved to be looking at teams coming up to the Premier League and not being jealous because we're on the other trajectory and we're on our way down because that's normally how it's been. We're just seeing these teams as fresh competition and that's great. Burnley, I think, are the more interesting of the 2 just because of the complete change in style since they were last up. And it's really interesting to see how that will translate to the Premier League. From a Fulham perspective, if we're down there, which hopefully we're not, but, these things can happen, I really hope we're not involved in any relegation drama. But if we are, then hopefully it doesn't translate very well at all. But Kompany's a very impressive up-and-coming manager, and it'll be interesting to see how he does. Sheffield United, this is one that I'm slightly less enthusiastic about, but I like them as a club. And I'm interested to see how they do. They didn't lose too many players when they went down, and I think that's shown. They have quality. Sander Berge, who we were obviously linked to in January, scoring last night and one of the 2 goals to bring them back up. And it'll be interesting to see. I doubt there'll be any movement with him this summer after they've secured their promotion. But it's an interesting one. And for the playoffs, I mean, Jack, they're just anyone's, isn't it? It's absolutely anyone's.
Well, we don't even know who's going to be in them yet. We know Luton and Borough will be, but yeah.
Luton and Borough, you start to think as well from a Fulham perspective, do you want Coventry to come up, or would that mean that we couldn't even go for Gyökeres as a backup striker, for example? Are you starting to look like that? But it's very good to look at these teams and think, okay, these are teams coming to the Premier League with us. These are not Premier League. They're not replacing us, and that's great.
Fulham, Norwich, they won't be swapping places. They'll be staying exactly where they are, both teams.
Yeah.
Interesting. Funny how narratives sort of work themselves out. Last summer, it was all about Fulham, Norwich swapping places. Mitrovic can't do it in the Prem, and here we are. We are. Just finally, what I'll say on Sheffield United is they've got a spine right now of Amazhovic. No, hold on. I've butchered that. The centre-back.
I know who you mean. Yeah. And I don't know how to pronounce it. Apologies.
Sander Berge and Iliman Ndiaye. I mean, that in itself is very, very exciting if they can keep all of those, their Premier League quality already. And obviously Burnley, I think they're going to attract a lot of good players. I think Kompany's got a good sort of pool in terms of him as a person, the type of system they play, the football they play, and where he's actually signed players from before in terms of using experience when he was at Anderlecht and going into the market in Belgium, something that our former manager couldn't quite get to work in Belgium, in Scott Parker. That's it for today. Very exciting stuff, really. Looking forward to the summer ahead, where we're going to be linked with 150 players and get very, very excited. There was an article that came out actually, or it was actually, I can't remember, whatever. Something was said where it was like, Fulham are looking to invest heavily in the summer.
Yes.
I can't actually remember where that was said from.
I think that came from the embargoed bit of Silva's presser as well.
That was it.
He was just saying we need to spend big to improve next season, and he's right. And I think the game on Tuesday proved that, just in terms of it's all well and good having a Premier League quality starting 11, but you need a Premier League quality bench and reserves, and we definitely improved the bench in January. But you could take it a hell of a lot further, and there's obvious positions for that. There's less obvious positions where players might leave, but a big summer ahead, and I'm really excited for it.
Yeah, super excited. And there are a lot of improvement. We were talking about in the group chat last night, there are a lot of improvements to make in this squad, and there's plenty of time to do it. Let's just hopefully, because obviously even last summer our business was very, very late on, and we were getting panicked. My biggest fear, Joe, is the Triple S second season syndrome.
Yes. And
that's something we could discuss during the summer and depending on how things go. But let's leave it there. We've been rambling on for long enough. Joe, thanks so much for being here. We'll see you next. Oh, we're playing Liverpool midweek.
Liverpool.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Anyway, we're winning 1-0 at Anfield again. Tough game. I guess we should just mention it briefly, Jack. I mean, it's a tough game. I wish it was more important in terms of European football. I was looking at this a couple of weeks and months ago thinking, is this the shootout for Europa League? Liverpool could even push on now towards the Champions League if they get their act together quick enough, which they have done in recent weeks. Not the ideal time to play them as they're coming back into form, but I'm sure it'll be a really good game.
Yeah, so that's the Wednesday night. We're going to do a Jack and Joe show again on the Thursday, previewing the game against
Southampton.
It is Southampton.
Oh no, it's not. It's Leicester.
Leicester. And that's on the Monday. So actually, Thursday would be a good time to upload anyway. Thinking out loud again, because obviously we've got time for the game. Guys, enjoy your bank holiday weekend. If we're 2-0 down to City within 20 minutes, it's not that. It's okay. They're Manchester City. We're Fulham. We're still 10th in the league. We're not going down. We're still 6 points above Chelsea. But you have the right to still be annoyed because you want your team to win. So thank you very much for watching. Come on, Fulham. Joe, thank you so much.
Cheers, Jack. Thanks for watching, guys.
Take care, guys. Come on, Fulham.